What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another Detroit Lions video. I'm not sure what that was. I don't know. Man, my voice is coming back a little bit, all right? We're feeling a little bit better over here. And today, man, we are going to dive into this Lions-Falcons game, All-22. Now, I wanted to kind of just knock this thing out and then move forward because this is a short week. We got Thursday Night Football. We got Lions, Packers, and I want to get onto that game as soon as possible. This was a great win for the Lions. A lot of good, especially on the defensive side of the ball, stopping the run once again. By the way, I pulled up some numbers, okay, because last week was great. We look at the stats against the run. It was fantastic. But on the season, just to kind of put it into context, the Detroit Lions are allowing 3.2 yards per carry. That's 5th in the league. And also 72 yards per game. That's 5th in the league. You could even go into the pass defense stats, which I don't think across the board are great, but there's a lot of good in there. 10th in completion percentage allowed. They're allowing an 88.8 passer rating, which I think is slightly below average, but honestly, in today's NFL, an 88.8 passer rating is not terrible to give up. And then also, a lot of that is because of the 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. But they're not allowing a high completion percentage, which we saw last year when we got Jerry Jacobs back. That was the case. We were first in the league from week 9 on. And then interceptions, we only have 1, but we've had multiple opportunities to come up with 1. We really should have came up with at least 1 in this game that we did not, but that would have obviously dropped that passer rating big time. But the point is, the defense has been off to a really solid start. Now, last week, it wasn't great with Seattle. We took a look at a lot of things in that game. It wasn't great, man. We were just like a playoff, it felt like the entire time. But this week, we were able to consistently play with the 2-score lead. We got up 13-3, and we were able to consistently hold on to that 2-score lead. It allowed us to get after this offense, take them out of what they wanted to be offensively, and really the emphasis was stopping the run, taking away the flats with a ton of cover 3 looks. And in today's video, I'm going to dive into some specific plays, talking through just some of the key points that stuck out to me personnel-wise or whatever that may be. But there's a lot of clips to take a look at. We're doing both offense and defense, and then we'll move forward. So I'll try my best not to talk too much on each play, but y'all know how it is, man. We talk a little bit. We can have some fun because we won, so I want to show a lot of good. There's some bad, but I want to show a lot of good because we won the game. So we're going to have some fun with this one. But let's dive right into it. Okay, so this first play that we have here, and this is going to go back and forth. This is in order throughout the game. Doesn't mean I have a play necessarily from each drive, but it does go in order. So this is the first drive that we're going to take a look at on the defensive side of the ball. We have a 3rd and 3 look. First thing I want to point out is the cornerback position. When Drake London was aligned on the outside, like he is here, he's aligned wide. He's in a wide alignment. Lions put Cam Sutton on him. And if you remember last week, we saw Lions kind of flip where Jerry Jacobs and Cam Sutton were aligned because a lot of times DK was lying on the same side of the field, the left side of the field. So the Lions flipped it, and they ultimately put Jerry Jacobs on basically the opposite side of DK Metcalf until overtime, and they went at him in a 2-man look, and they picked up a big first down on 3rd and 6. Well, this week, the Lions essentially had Cam Sutton following around Drake London anytime he was aligned wide. Now, when he went into the slot, that was not the case. It was Brian Branch usually that had to hold that down, or the safeties, or whoever that may be. Sometimes we had a linebacker in there, but when they were on the outside, Cam Sutton was holding down that matchup for us. And this first look that I wanted to give was not a ton of crazy here. Lions are going into a cover 1 look. They're going to have an underneath defender, which is free, just playing this underneath zone, and that's going to be Derek Barnes on this play. But it's the quick little flat. We talk about the tone setting defensively. I think Alex Anzalone or Duracell is that guy. First off, I love the angle here. He knows that he's mashed up on the running back on this play. You can also take a look at the other guys manned up here. You can see Iffy's in the slot. We utilize both Tracy and Iffy in some man coverage. I thought Tracy got a lot of work in man coverage in this game, and I think that's been an area where last few years, I thought that was an area where he was just working to improve and get better, and I think he's taken big strides there. I don't know that that's his best trait right now. I don't think it is, but I think he's really worked on improving that aspect of his game to make himself a much more well-rounded, versatile safety. We know he's a big hitter. We know he's physical. We know he's aggressive, man. He's kind of a ball hawk in the sense of he just wants to find the football and he wants to hit the guy with the football, right? We get that, but if he's in here, and the reason I point that out is because in this game, one of the personnel tweaks that you noticed is a lot of times the Lions would only put 1 true safety on the field on early downs, meaning that you only have, for example, Tracy Walker and Brian Branch. Now, Brian Branch, you could list him as a safety, but for us, he basically plays slot. He did rotate a little bit, so there were plays where he was aligned in a safety role, and then he would come down into the box, but he didn't play deep, I don't think, at all in this game. And then also, Jerry Jacobs at times, occasionally would roll out to a safety alignment, just depending on what we were doing defensively. But the point is that there were a lot of snaps in this game where we only had 1 safety on the field. Again, the emphasis was we're stopping the run. So it was either this. It was either, hey, Lions are going to put the safety in the box, and then he can play the flat when we go cover 3 because we got to take away those flats. We saw that when we looked at the Falcons film, and all the quick hitters, the swings, the screens. We saw that in today's game in this game as well. So when we put the safety in the box, he can play the flat. But if he's not in the box and we do want to roll him down post snap, which we didn't do a ton, but when we do, that linebacker then is actually going to get to the flat because we have to instantly get out there. We can't wait. We need to get out there and take that away. So then the safety would roll down. Instead of going to the flat where we usually play our safeties when they roll down to cover 3 look, he would buzz down into one of those hook zone areas right over the middle of the field. So we'll take a look at some of those plays. But this first one, I know I'm kind of going off just talking about a lot of things, just a lot of things in my head right now. But let's take a look at this stop. So they're going to run a flat pattern here with the running back. Alex has the running back on this play. Love the angle that he takes. You don't get a run fake here. Watch him get flat right here. And then again, we talked about this with Brian Branch in terms of giving space so that they can't create kind of those natural pick plays. I think it's been one of the best aspects of Brian Branch is that awareness to like, hey, okay, they're trying to set up a pick. Let me get depth. Let me allow you to get through cleanly. We looked at this last week as well, and you kind of get the same thing here. But give some credit to Alex Anzalone as well for getting flat on this, taking a really nice angle to the football, and then, of course, just driving through the ball and shutting down a 3rd and 3 play. There really isn't a lot fancy with this. They tried to go to a quick flat, and then, Alex Anzalone shut it down. Now, when you go to the offensive side of the ball, there was definitely some up and some down in this game. Dealing with the linebackers, I thought bringing pressure in the interior, we had some hit and miss there. I thought there were stretches of this game as well where not only was the pressure affecting us, but also some of their disguised look and coverage were giving us some issues as well. They would be putting a safety down into the box, or they'd roll them down, they'd show cover 3, or they'd show man across the board. Then they'd drop out of it, and all of a sudden they're in Tampa 2, and I thought there was a stretch there where we struggled a little bit. But this is at the very beginning of the game offensively for us, and they're just going into a cover 1 look. Now, what they were doing with Calais Campbell a lot of the game, and one of the adjustments I think we saw as the line started to put Jason Kabinda in the backfield with Jared Goff and some of these gun looks, but they were taking away Jahmyr Gibbs like this with Calais Campbell. He would go out there and essentially go chip the running back who's running that swing route behind the line of scrimmage, and then he would rush the passer. So while it's still a blitz, it was kind of delayed. But what this meant was the communication had to be on point, because 44 in this case, the linebacker is going to shoot through that A gap, and you can see Penei Sewell does a pretty nice job of recognizing it instantly. Like, hold up, he's dropping out. Dude, you got to slide over and pick that up. We were late to the party picking that up here with Jonah Jackson, which allowed some pressure through. Also, they're manning up on this play, and you can see with the guy that's manning him up is clearly an off coverage, as that is the safety here. I think that goes back to some of their disguised looks as well, because, hey, you think the linebacker's got him? Nope, he's blitzing. So now who has him? Well, the safety has him. And for Goff, once you recognize that, you're like, oh, our linebacker's blitzing. Whoever has him, he's in off coverage. That's where I want to go with it. Well, when Campbell goes out there and shoves him on the ground, now there's nowhere to go with the football. So the pressure gets through. It's a really good job, I think, here by Atlanta's defense. You see the one route that they really had here was at the bottom with Khalif Raymond, but with that pressure, Goff's not going to, flip around and throw that pass. That's just not what he's going to do. So he's going to that check down. He ultimately throws it away. So in this game, one guy that I thought was consistently just great for the Lions. I mean, watching it back, I mean, look, Brian Branch, you can give him the MVP. I'm cool with that. I think he's deserving. That's fine. But Aleem McNeil consistently was dominant, whether that be pass rush, run defense specifically. He was outstanding. And I thought a lot of it was he played some 2-eye, played some 3-tech, but really playing into his quickness. This is an offensive line that wants to get wide, right? They want to make you move. So we thought with an Isaiah Buggs, here he is in a 2-eye. You have to be able to get in front of that center, right? You don't want to get sealed off on the back side, on the front side here. I thought they started to kind of move a guy like Isaiah Buggs to the 1 technique when he was in outside zone rushing plays like this one. You can see safety, Ife Melifonwu was in the box. In this case, like I said, they weren't afraid to do that. Other teams I had seen kind of stuck to who they were. Like, oh, we're going to roll the safety post snap. We're going to disguise it. Darren Glenn was not playing around with that. He came in, he's like, nah, we're putting the safety in the box. We're stopping the run. It's just that simple. Also give credit to Romeo here. So he's on the weak side as this defensive end here, and watch him set a hard edge here. I thought Romeo did some good in this game. Sets a really nice hard edge, gets the inside hand, and he's able to shut off of that and get in and make a tackle. Watch Aleem McNeil on the backside. You'll see a lot of that quickness off the line. Man, he looked good. The way that he was moving, that's not the best rep at all. But the way that he was moving, just some of the quickness, the agility we saw in this game was outstanding. But this one, I want to showcase some Romeo Okwara for setting the hard edge, which we had talked about. They're going to go to that weak side here. They're going to attack Isaiah Buggs, but he's able to kind of force that thing back inside. They picked up a couple yards, but for the most part, it was only 3 yards on that play. That was just a crazy stat that still doesn't even seem right, but it kind of tells you all you need to know about how this game went. The Lions getting 7 sacks on Desmond Ridder. The reason that this is crazy is because, one, they're not a pass-heavy team, so it tells you about the Lions' ability to kind of put him in a spot where they weren't as comfortable. Number 2, they don't have the most diverse passing scheme or passing attack. It's really not that diverse. And 3, they don't have the best pass-protecting offensive line. They have a great run-blocking offensive line. So it speaks to the Lions' ability to get him in some of those situations, but then also make plays in spots like this where they're sliding in pass protection, yet the defensive front is just making a play. Simple as that. Athleticism. The defensive front, again, they don't have all the big names on there. Ali McNeil, right? He's kind of a well-known name, I think, from Lions fans. But the point is like these guys have now consistently been showing up and playing pretty darn well. And here it's Benito Jones. You can see Aleem on the backside. Look at him get in front of this block and kind of wall it off. You love that. And he's able to kind of rip through and get a little bit of pass rush. But it's Benito Jones on the front side of this play. Watch him just explode into contact right here. Watch this. Boom. Right on the center. Get in his chest. And then he's able to drive and then get over top with that swim move and get the sack on this play. Man, when you get pressure like that, there's nothing you can do with it. There's nothing you can do with it. You're not supposed to get sacks that fast in this look. It just talks about how early the defensive line was winning. In the back end, we had this cover 3 look, which we saw a lot of. Notice Jack Campbell on this play. He's playing pretty flat here, which understandable. There's no really other option on this side of the field. You know, it's kind of just singled up down here with Jerry Jacobs. They have the little swing route that doesn't really come out. But if you notice what the Lions did a lot with a guy like Campbell, not much and as in this case where he's kind of in his off-ball position, but when he was on the line of scrimmage, they didn't get a ton of depth on that side, right? Getting a ton of depth and coverage. Again, the emphasis was we have to take away those flats. And you got to see like here with Brian Branch, we have to take those looks away. But here, they don't even get an opportunity. You can see they may have had something here, right here. You can see with Hollins on Jerry Jacobs, they may have had an opportunity. I think the one thing that stuck out to me a little bit with Jerry, playing this off coverage consistently now, playing half turn. We know he's kind of a press guy in the past. I think is just he gets a little bit overly aggressive from that position, like playing off. It's like he gets a little bit antsy, I feel like, when I watch him play that. So, again, hopefully with more time, that kind of tightens in and gets better and better because I think there's good that's mixed in there as well. We know he's had some PIs. Some of them I don't even think were that physical. It's like, I don't know about that one. But I just think overall, it felt like he could get a little bit antsy when he was kind of jumping in some of these off-coverage looks. But outside of that, hopefully that continues to dial in. That's not really who he was in the past for us because of what we had defensively. Now that we have some of these new additions to that cornerback room, we have a different look defensively and some of how we're going to ask to play schematically. So it's been an adjustment for him as well. One thing the Lions did often in this game was try to attack right in front of those safeties. And we see it here. I think this was a great example. This is a quarters look defensively. They're going into cover 4. Now, what you don't see on this play is they do a little short in motion. We saw a ton of this in this game. We also saw some of the across motion as well. But a lot of these short motions, sometimes we would drag across, sometimes we just sit down in the zone area. But we saw a lot of that in this game. The Lions attacked with that. And sometimes it was just able to get the depth like they wanted it to. So you can see here with that short in motion, notice this safety starts to kind of creep up a little bit. And then your backside, you have Jesse Bates. He starts to get a little bit more depth. Then you sell it by pulling Jonah Jackson. Linebackers are going to get aggressive to Phil. Boom. He feels super aggressive. That's kind of how they play. That's their play style. So you get both linebackers to bite down. Now you have that depth that you wanted from Jesse Bates to go right in front of him, and you just kind of throw it right over the middle to Sam Laporta. So the little motion, just the little things like that, we know this with Ben Johnson. He's just able to create leverage. He's able to create this little bit of extra depth that he wants to run his plays, and we've seen that a ton. The motion is always key within his offense. How about this? Again, we talk about attacking tendencies, and I think you get to kind of see that early, right? When you come into a game, you know what a team's tendency is. So early in the game, you kind of come in with a plan. Like, this is what they like to do. This is how we can attack it. And then as the game goes on, usually teams adjust. You start to get different looks. They started giving us different looks, and we had to adapt. The run game wasn't very effective. We had to adapt schematically, which we'll take a look at. But coming into this game, we knew that with a lot of these two-man looks in the back end, the linebackers would pass to the safeties. They do some of the looks that we kind of do defensively as well. So, like, for example, this, where they kind of would just spot up Amon-Ra St. Brown. They would take him behind the linebacker, and you can see right here, he would pass it off to a safety. But, of course, where he's sitting down, no safety's in a position to take that. But then they also run this drag route underneath here, and that's what's really going to force this linebacker to pass that thing off. That inside leverage, there goes Josh Reynolds just screaming across the middle. So now he's seeing that he needs to step in front of that, or that's going to be an open because it's man coverage. He's just running a crossing route. He's got to step in front of that to take it away. But again, you're still in man coverage. So he's passing off Amon-Ra St. Brown, but St. Brown's just going to sit right. It's just a great example of kind of the timing within the offense. Here you're going to get a cover 3 look. You can see the safety rolling down to kind of play the outside flat, that sky area of this cover 3. But on the backside, they're going to kind of ISO. They're kind of just kind of go one-on-one on the backside because you only have really 2 threats. Safety rolls down. He can take away the running back. And then here, A.J. Terrell's just going to go one-on-one with Josh Reynolds. On the front side, though, where the ball's going to go, you're going to see they're going to give you that cover 3 look. So the Lions get that look that they want. You can see the safety is cheating over there. Again, where is he? He's lined right on top of the linebacker who's going to pass this vertical route right off to the safety. But then what it comes back to me, is really the timing within the offense. So when you run two seams, he's going to pass it off to the safety. The cornerback has to get depth here because he's playing cover 3, so he's going to pass this thing off of the cornerback. But you basically are almost setting pick plays by running both of these routes. Now he's going to run like a dig behind it, so you kind of have an option behind it, but that's not where this ball is intended to go. Lions did this a couple of times here, and the timing within the route to hit the slot corner at the same time that he gets into his break. It's all about timing and the little details. When he's coming out of this break, Alford sees that, and now he wants to pass it off and drive down on this. But again, it's too late, basically. Sam Laporta releases outside, and then once he sees it, it's just too late to get in there and make a play. So again, you talk about offensively, just the timing that they have. Also, Matt Nelson, pretty good pass protection here. Our pass pro was not great in the interior. I thought Graham Glasgow had a bounce back game in pass protection from last week, but honestly, outside of that, it was kind of rough. We struggled a little bit, but Matt Nelson, that was a pretty good rep there against Dupree, so I wanted to show him some love for that one. This is one of my favorite plays offensively, and it was early in this game, but this was one of my favorite plays from Goff, man, because they're going to bring a blitz on this play. You're going to see it right here. Alford's going to blitz. They're going to drop out Calais Campbell, which clearly they messed up a little bit because they ran into each other, which slowed down everything, but they're going into, again, a quarters look. Now, you want to talk about disguising coverage, right? This is how you disguise coverage. This does not look like what they're going to roll into, and that's we talked about coming into it. This is one of the best zone coverage teams in football. They're mixed between zone and man, but they are very sound in the back end with how they do things. They're opportunistic, they're very sound, and they give you a lot of tricky looks with what they can do up front and also what they're doing in the back end. This wasn't an ideal blitz. I don't think they were planning on running into each other to slow it down, but the point is that you're getting the cover 4 in the back end. They're losing an underneath defender. Here, you're going to see the linebacker blitz. Ellis has to slide over to kind of fill in, so they're going to kind of just open themselves up, open up that middle field. Usually there's 3 underneath players, so you're losing that middle field player. You're kind of just going with 2 to cover a lot of ground underneath. Otherwise, you're getting kind of that umbrella over top. You're getting that cover 4 look. But notice here, this is just beautiful, I think. Jared Goff senses the pressure. You get the extra rusher coming through. They drop out Campbell. This linebacker flies over. And then for Goff to stand in there, find Khalif Raymond sitting between the 2 defenders that leaked out in underneath coverage and deliver that pass. It was one of my favorite throws in this game. Now, I would say the Lions were pretty ineffective with a lot of their zone rushing plays. They opened it up at one point. They had a couple of good reps in there, but for the most part, they were struggling to get a lot of the efficiency going with a lot of their normal zone running. And I thought that they would have more success in this game than they did. So, they had to adapt. And that's what we started to see here, starting to get the run game going a little bit. And the way that they first did that was with some of these power run plays. Not necessarily the traps and the whams that we usually see, right, where you're trying to get to the second level. We did get some of those. But here, a straight up power run play. They did it differently, however. They're going to pull Penei Sewell between Matt Nelson here to get up to the second level and pick up Caden Ellis. But you're going to see with the lineman, what that allows them to do is just seal off. They're going to seal off this backside here with Matt Nelson. They seal off here with Graham Glasgow. Frank Ragnall's able to get up to the second level. Instead of trying to zone block where these interior guys were giving us problems, specifically their starters were giving us real problems, unable to hold those blocks sustained. We had holding penalties. We were just very inefficient. We were blowing blocks left and right. So here, you can see the seal works really well right there. Lions just went with a totally different look. They're like, look, let's go some power football, and we're just going to seal up front. And it was a different way to do it by pulling the tackle around, but you can see this was one of their best runs early, a 9-yard pop there by just changing it up a little bit schematically. So they had to adapt, and they were able to find some success. They did some dual runs a little bit later and had some success there as well. We'll take a look at that, but it was a way for the Lions to kind of mix up what they were doing in the run game. Now here, back to the defensive side of the ball. This is one of those toss plays that they went to with Bijan Robinson. And like I said, they like to get wide, man. They like these quick hitters, and the Lions were just handling all of it, to be honest with you. You can look at what the Lions personnel is here. Notice again on this play, one safety, Brian Branch, is going to be on the outside. The Lions personnel was, we are going to stop the run. Couple things that stand out. First off, Aleem McNeil on the front side. Aleem McNeil, like I said, he was amazing in this game to me. He was outstanding this entire game. Here he is in a 3 technique on this on the shoulder of the guard. Watch him get contact, then drive through it, and then get in front of this block and handle that. Like, man, he's part of forcing that cutback lane, handling his block early. Also, Aiden Hutchinson, we talked about the matchup against the tight ends. Who was going to get that matchup? We'll take a look here at Aiden Hutchinson on this front side. And this probably isn't even the best example. There was a lot of good of just attacking, making sure he got out wide. And then, again, you can see Brian Branch here. He's just going to come through off the D-gap. He's going to come in free. Aiden Hutchinson tries to be the widest player, but Brian Branch is just going to fly alongside the outside here, and he's just going to come into the backfield to make a play. Meanwhile, you have Isaiah Buggs, like we talked about, he's a little bit more in an inside technique on this backside of this play. He's in more of a one technique. Really here, it starts with Ali McNeil, Brian Branchton shooting into the backfield and bringing it down for a tackle for loss, man. He is decisive. For a young player, he's decisive. He'll mess some things up, but that's fine. He's instinctive, and he just goes, and he shoots, and he makes plays. Lions, like we talked about, they were playing some man coverage, but they were also playing a lot of cover 3 on early downs. And as I touched on before, they were aggressive in the flat. So here, with kind of that Sam backer, in this case, you have Charles Harris. They have the flat to his side, so he's aggressive to kind of take that away. Now, it swings out here, and he gets a little bit of depth, but again, you can see where his primary focus is. Now, this one, we don't really get to see it live, what really happened and why this thing got open, but it's actually kind of simple how this happened. They push Kyle Pitts up the seam vertically, and then outside of that, they end up releasing the tight end on the play. And the tight end kind of comes through delayed, and he runs that little out route with Jonnu Smith. Now, this one was well done. I think they should have tried to attack this a little bit more often, to be honest with you. But the next time they went to it that I noticed, they flipped the roles, and they had Smith try to run vertically, and they tried to use Kyle Pitts on an out route. And he was just not fast enough to push Jerry Jacobs to get this kind of depth where he didn't recognize that that little out route was coming underneath it. He didn't see it. He's just getting pushed vertically. He sees that, so he's got to get depth with it. A little bit late on this play to give that thing to Tracy Walker and then drive back down. He almost got back into this play. I thought they should have attacked it more often, but next time we take a look at a similar look, you'll see the Lions covered it up well. And then also, I think offensively, I just don't know why they switched how they were using their personnel. It just did not work. We're going to get kind of, again, that overlook from this front. We're going to have the 3 tech here this time with Isaiah Buggs. Now, what they would do is they would flip linebackers, but not necessarily who they had on their interior defensive line. So, for example, they would just shift techniques based on where the strong side was. So the strong side now to the left side, they would shift it over. Now you have Isaiah Buggs at that 3 technique on the front side, and he does a well enough job, I think, really staying in front here. You know, he's not getting a ton of push into the backfield, but he's playing at the line of scrimmage. He's going on the front shoulder. He's doing a pretty nice job, right? He's not in a bad spot behind this play. So that's the first thing you notice. Charles Harris then just being aggressive, again, just kind of shooting between. Tracy Walker is going to get outside, and then you're just going to shoot inside here with Charles Harris, like we saw kind of with Brian Branch a little bit. But it's, again, Ali McNeil off this backside, man. In this 2-eye, he's inside shading that guard, and it's just that quickness, man. Get your hands on quick, rip through, and then he's going to get in there to try to help make a tackle. Now, he doesn't come up with a tackle, but he's just playing so quick, and this is a really good right guard that they have, right? This is a really good run-blocking right guard, and he's able to get inside there, rip through, and he's able to get in on this tackle, and then obviously Charles Harris gets in and finishes it off. We're stopping the run. Well, how about this, okay? So here, the Lions actually go into a cover 1 look defensively. So what we're getting here is not the zone look. You can see with the motion, Tracy comes down. Now Jerry goes to safety. Tracy just mans up on this play. They were being very flexible and versatile with who they put in man coverage. There were times where Kyle Pitt? No, Jonnu Smith would just be aligned on Alex Anzalone one-on-one. Lions were pretty much willing to put anybody one-on-one. They had a couple of guys that they wanted. Like I said, if Drake London was on the outside, Cam Sutton would be there. They would get help in the red zone. But for the most part, they were very flexible in their matchups, and I think that's what they want to be. They want to be able to play flexible, and they were doing that. They were being very flexible with their matchups. So here, Jerry rolls into the safety role, but we're still manning up in the back end. Take a look at Iffy here. If he's going to fill to play the run, he's going to fill in his gap, and then all of a sudden, you can see him drop out. He's got Jonnu Smith manned up on this play, and when you're in man on a screenplay, it's usually a good thing for the defense. But it does come down to that one guy that's in that coverage usually needs to make the play. Now, Duracell on this play was probably a free defender. He was probably the guy that was in zone coverage that was free on this play, kind of playing that whole position. But usually in man coverage, it comes down to that guy. You're in man, so you should be able to take it away. But if you don't, things can get scary. If he handled that, he filled, he dropped out, he played in a really good spot here on the tight end, got outside of the tackle, and then boom, he shut this thing down. I mean, that was beautiful. If he played a heck of a game, Tracy played a nice game as well. That was a beautiful play, and I just want to spotlight Iffy doing some work right there. Here we're going to get some pressure here from Aiden Hutchinson working right through the right tackle. You can see the little bull rush there, right? The ball is getting out quickly. And Lee McNeil looked like he had a little bit of push in here as well on Bergeron. That was just not an ideal matchup for the rookie. We had some success going at that all game. Notice, like I said with Jerry Jacobs here in off coverage, kind of what I pointed to earlier, when the Lions go to these cover 1 looks, safety goes down. He's going to be the robber on this play, just playing the middle field. Tracy Walker is now that deep safety. But you can see how aggressive he kind of gets to those moves. He gets a little bit aggressive, I think, just a little bit antsy, playing just kind of a little bit of a different role more consistently. But here it is Brian Branch. They put him in the slot. So it felt like when they were trying to get away from Sutton or how the Lions were playing coverage-wise, they'd put him in the slot. And here, the Lions would put Brian Branch on him. Notice who's in the opposite slot. It's Alex Anzalone man-on-man with Kyle Pitts. And they didn't attack that for whatever reason. I mean, we had inside help here with the safeties, so we did have that. But, I mean, I would have been looking at this like, hey, we got to at least try to go at this a little bit. But Alex Anzalone did a great job in coverage. I just don't know why they didn't find that matchup to attack. It never seemed like they did. I feel like that would be a place that I would look to attack for sure. But you're going to see here Brian Branch manned up on this play, has that inside help with the safety rolling down. And you can see he gets opened a little bit, but this was what was so nice about Brian Branch is he usually would not get overly aggressive, right? You wouldn't get a ton of false steps, and you can't have that from the slot position. London's not the twitchiest guy. He's a big guy, so he'll box you out, but staying in a pretty good position here, opening up, undercut, and breaks up that pass. Beautiful coverage from Brian Branch. That was a 3rd and 14, and just getting off the field there. He also does a nice job of maintaining leverage, right? When he's trying to hold leverage and you want to attack it, he does a pretty nice job of trying to maintain that. But again, he opens up, but not too far. He doesn't get overly aggressive, doesn't overstep and put himself behind. He does a pretty nice job of staying patient in coverage. We saw that back at Bama. It takes me back to the Minnesota game when Ben Johnson was first kind of getting his name out there with the Lions and what he was doing for our offense, because it's kind of the same setup if you go back to that game where they used a short out motion here. They're going to motion him. The short left little motion here for Jason Kabinda. Then they're going to pull Jonah Jackson. Notice what this does, though. So when he motions outside, you're going to see they're going to pull Jonah Jackson to the right. But he motions out. Now all of a sudden, Anderson gets aggressive. So he steps down to fill that lane. Now the Lions show a counter, kind of a counter look off of it, where they pull Jonah Jackson the opposite way. So he sees that. He doesn't fill, of course, on this play. You can see the ball's probably going to go the other way if this thing is handed off. So you get kind of a counter look on the play. But what this also does is it kind of forces this safety's hand to come down and play Amon-Ra St. Brown on this play. So here, watch. Both guys get a free release. They're going to go into a Tampa 2 look defensively. So they're giving you a too high look pre-snap. They're going to do that defensively. But this guy's going to open up and play kind of the seam on this play, though he gets ran by with the play fake. So you notice the puller doing some work with this linebacker, holding him down. So now he's really got no help up the seam. No one's going to carry him. Now you isolate that safety one-on-one. So you notice with St. Brown with this free release, he follows kind of that short motion, drives into his gap, then he drops out. But what that does with Khalif Raymond coming down and sitting right in front of the safety, now all of a sudden you've basically isolated this safety on St. Brown. The linebacker's not in a position here. If the ball went here, someone's got to be there. And the safety had to drive down, and he basically got isolated on this play with the short little motion and then the pull across, both taking linebackers on the play. And then again for the cornerback can't really help you either. He can't help bracket this in because Jason Kabinda is going to do this little wheel route, so he's going to take the cornerback out of the play. So it really opens up a passing lane where this safety is almost forced, like we're forcing his hand to come down and say, hey, you got to take this guy away. What that also does, though, is it puts this safety on an island. Really, right, you're going to be sitting to the outside. You're going to be spreading out. The Lions are in kind of a condensed look with kind of their splits for the receivers here. So he's not like super far outside because there's no threat that far to the outside. But it essentially just isolates this safety one-on-one with Khalif Raymond. And that is a nightmare because a guy that fast, that's all it takes is speed at that point. A guy that fast, you can't keep up with him with that much space. It's just not going to happen here, especially with the safety. So he's opening up, and then it's just a nice little route, and it's just too much room. There's no help to the opposite side. He's one-on-one. He doesn't want to be one-on-one in this spot, but he is. And you'll see this in a lot of different ways. Their safeties align like they're playing quarters essentially every play. They sit on top of the hash marks, they stay behind their linebackers, and they're aggressive to stay down and pick up these routes. So it's, again, attacking a tendency really of how they align. Ideally a spot to be caught one-on-one, but he is on this play, and the Lions get an open shot. Now, we miss it here, and you can see Goff's eyes. Goff kind of added to this by watching this little kind of curl route. He was able to really hold this safety down and then come back over top. He missed the pass on this one. We came back same drive and got our touchdown, but the setup was still there. So I wanted to showcase the setup because it was still nice. Talking about good setups, how about this one? So defensively, we're going to get a 3rd and 8 look here. One of the tendencies that we knew, and there were 2 plays that stuck out to me, is that Atlanta on 3rd down will play man coverage. They'll also put their linebackers on the ball in the box. Keep that in mind for next time. But here they're going man coverage. They're going into this 2-man look. Now their safeties will lurk, right? They won't just drop wide. They'll lurk around and try to, jump some routes, things like that. So here we get man coverage across the board, but notice what the Lions do. They run this kind of pick play here with the receivers, and they set up this little wheel route to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So they set up this pick here on Alford, and they run with the wheel route with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Notice Goff's eyes. Goff's also going to stare middle field here. He's going to hold Jesse Bates. So they're keeping eyes on kind of the routes, reading the quarterback. They're trying to lurk on these plays. Here's the sticks, and Goff is going to hold hold middle field here. The safeties aren't getting wide. You kind of notice with where their splits are. Notice here, their splits aren't very wide. The widest one here is with Josh Reynolds, and he's going to release inside. So they're not dropping out and getting wide all immediately. On top of that, Goff is looking middle field, holding Bates inside, and then by the time he comes back to this route, the timing's on point. The safety has no chance of getting over there, and the Lions convert on a 3rd and 8. This is one of the slickest plays of the game. So they're going into a cover 3 look here defensively. A couple things that we know about them. First off, they will travel with the slot motion. So notice Alfred over here, he's going to travel. They're playing cover 3 with the safety. So the Lions, first off, they bring this across motion here from St. Brown, and they put him up right on the line of scrimmage from that tight end alignment. So Alfred follows that over. Again, they're still going into a cover 3 look, though, here defensively. Trey Flowers, who was originally on St. Brown when he was out in a wider alignment, now he comes into the box, and he's right on the side of the line of scrimmage. He's playing outside of the line of scrimmage here, Trey Flowers is. Now, also notice the pacing in the route. I'll showcase that first here. Sam Laporta, he's going to sell that. He's going to seal down a block. The play fake's tied into that, and then he's going to take off. So obviously that hurts them because he sells his route really well with the pacing. But then on top of that, they basically set up a pick offensively for 2 of their defensive players. They end up running into each other defensively because of what the Lions are doing here. So again, this player would be your flat defender, right? He's your flat defender. So what the Lions do is, while they motion St. Brown across and Alfred follows that direction, when he comes back, they're going to run a beneath route. So he's going to shoot through the behind the line of scrimmage. He's going to shoot through and run a beneath route here. What that does is the safety who has the flat on this play, he needs to get out there and cover that. Trey Flowers, he is not responsible for that. He's an outside third. Now he's late here because he's watching play action. He sees his man motion away. He's not even thinking the inline guy's going to take off vertically. He's not even really paying attention to that. He sells it, and then by the time he goes, he's like, oh snap, that was my dude right here. That's that oh snap moment. But notice what happens here with the timing. Once he takes off vertically, St. Brown becomes visible, and this safety's like, oh, I got to get out to the flat. That's my role. So he tries to go to the flat. Now they're basically setting a pick on each other. They're literally running into each other with this play design. I mean, that is absolutely beautiful. So now you have 2 guys running into each other because he's got to get to the flat. He knows he's got to get vertical, and he is late to the party. So now he's taking off. Notice the backside. AJ Terrell, what is he doing? Well, pre-snap, we had a 1 receiver to that side of the field. We had 3 guys on the left. We had 1 on the right. So like we saw earlier, they're just going to isolate on the backside. Well, they motioned across here, so it's not really that look. It's kind of a 2x2, but then they bring back St. Brown, so it's still 3 guys over there. So he just isolates and mans up on this backside. He's not getting off his route. He is just isolating his man. That's all he's doing on this play. And notice St. Brown doesn't go to an alignment like a slot alignment where it's like, hey, maybe Terrell notices. He sticks right on the line of scrimmage. St. Brown does not get out wide. He's not go to the slot. He stays at the line of scrimmage to keep, I think, the isolation here with AJ Terrell. They're like, hey, we want him to just play one-on-one Josh Reynolds. He's kind of like the guy who just leave him be, go just run him away from the play. Now all of a sudden, again, you're isolating Sam Laporta with a safety, and he has the entire field to cover, and he's the middle single high safety, and this outside support is not there. He also has no support to the outside either on the left side of the field. So now he's got to cover this one-on-one, tied in. All of this with Jared Goff is rolling this way. You have a crosser, you have a beneath route, you have a chip flat, and all of a sudden Goff's eyes are there. The safety's seeing that. And then Laporta, who sells that, hey, maybe he's run the deep corner out. I don't know. All the flow's going this way. I'm going to flow this way too until he does it. And then Goff sets back and just lets it go. And that was maybe the prettiest play design I've seen in a minute. Look, that thing was absolutely disgusting. Can we all let's give a little clap for that. The thing is absolutely bananas. Okay. We all know it's that time of the season. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's going and looking for some tickets to a Lions game. That's it. We're all doing the same thing. We're all looking for tickets to sporting events because it's that time of year, whether that's college, NFL, whether that's a road game. Maybe you've never been to that stadium. And if you're like me, especially if you've never been to that stadium, you're probably not really sure when you're looking, is that really a good deal? Or are those seats that I'm looking at really good seats? Are they worth that price? Are those seats even good seats? I can't tell by just looking at the section number. I've never been there. Maybe you're trying to go to Lambeau Field on Thursday, but you never been there. So you don't really know where the best seats are to get and what it's going to look like from the spot that you're buying. You have to worry when you're buying a ticket to your next big event, whether that's a sporting event, a concert, maybe you're going to see a comedy act. Last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat. Also the best price guarantee. Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. What I love about the Game Time app is that you can get tons of different deals, and they pop up right by where you live. For example, today, Red Wings. I'm in that area, Red Wings shows up, and they're hitting me with deals. Instantly, I get views from all seats in that venue with the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection, etc. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. An hour into the event, you can still get deals using the Game Time app. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of an 18% savings. Some of the flash deals, as you can see, 10% off. And to guarantee the best price, if you find tickets in the same section and the same row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. You can buy tickets within 2 taps. Create an account. Use code DOSE for $20 off your first purchase. I mean, you tie that along with some of the deals, you could be getting a fantastic deal to your first purchase. Once again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code DOSE. DOSE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest priced, guaranteed. It's kind of what I was saying earlier, right? How Atlanta utilized kind of that vertical route to pull Jerry Jacobs and hit the outrun underneath. Notice what happens here. Lions are going into a cover 3 look, but it's not your normal cover 3 because they have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, 2 off-ball linebackers, and they have their slot. We can also point out the personnel change of Jack Campbell coming in. Here he is at that linebacker position for the Lions on the line of scrimmage. The difference here is when you put him in versus Charles Harris, who early in the game we saw play some off-ball. It's not as natural. Neither is probably him dropping and playing coverage into the flat. So for Jack Campbell, they would put him on the edge like this. It allowed them, as you can see, to play 2 off-ball linebackers here because he could play edge, but he could also sit back and play off-ball if they wanted him to, and Brian Branch, for example, say wasn't in the box. So his flexibility allowed them to put him on the edge or drop into off-ball very well, while also giving them some coverage flexibility because he could drop out in the flat. They're putting 5 guys on the line, so usually Jack Campbell will just play the flat like this. He's not going to fully rush. He'll kind of just play the flat, play the run, whatever that may be. And they'll have normally like 3 underneath defenders. But look at this. So they're going to try to run vertically with Jonnu Smith to pull Jerry Jacobs upfield. Like, hey, let's get that man vertical, and then we're going to hit that out route again. And that's fine. Like, it kind of works. Like, oh, yeah, Jerry did go vertical. That worked. But Brian Branch said, no, it's not going to work because I'm not just going to drop to a spot. No. I'm going to go find that man, Kyle Pitts. So I'm going to step in to play this run. That's where the play fake comes in handy. But as soon as it's not, watch him drive out of it, but not just to go to a spot or find it, just kind of float over there. Where's the quarterback looking? He finds Kyle Pitts, who's kind of just walking up his route to break this out route because they're like, hey, we get Jerry upfield. We'll just sit down this little out route, and it's easy money. But Brian Branch was having other plans. He's like, I'm going to go find that dude. So he gets in his hip before he even finds the ball. He gets contact, then he finds the ball, gets in his hip, gets back to it, and that was where the design was to go. There was no design. The design was we're getting the ball there. And that's why the setup was like it was. But Branch wasn't having that. He does an excellent job finding it. Pass breakup, one of the prettiest plays. Hutchinson gets some pressure here on the tight end. But come on, man. That's a rookie just going out there balling. That was one of my favorite plays from him in this game. If you block it properly, you can hit a sweep. And like the Lions did here, it's kind of where Gibbs can be really special because of how fast he is. They utilize the motion. You can see they take Alfred out of this side of the field. And once they do that, the guy that I key on is Sam Laporta. This thing is beautiful. Look at who he's matched up against. So they motion, he kind of creeps in a little bit, but he's still in a 9 technique. He's outside shade of a tight end. Watch Sam Laporta jump outside of his body, get contact. Notice he's kind of low. Like he's got a nice little wide base to him. Maybe not the prettiest thing, but he's got a nice wide base into contact. He's not blocking straight up. He kind of gets low like he talked about, and he's able to seal off this edge. It all starts with him. Now the pull blocks are beautiful, right? Give them credit. These are beautiful blocks, but it starts with him sealing off this edge to allow the run to get out there. The blocks are nice. You can see Jonah Jackson staying on his feet, passing it off to Frank. Gibbs breaking a tackle there as the linebacker on the backside, Anderson, feels very quickly here, but it's really these front side guys which are doing the job here. But yeah, 9 yards on that play, but it starts with Sam Laporta handling business. Now again, what do the Lions do a lot in this game? As I touched on, a lot of the short motion. So here defensively, again, talk about the disguise, right? What does this look like? I'm looking at this and I'm seeing 2 man. I'm seeing 2 man. We've already seen it from them. It's one of their things that they normally do. Normally in a third down situation, like we said, a tendency of theirs is to play man coverage. It's 3rd and 4. So I'm thinking 2 man if I'm Jared Goff. I'm thinking this linebacker's dropping out. He's got to be taking the running back. Something's got to happen there. They're in man coverage. And then Goff gets this look. So notice what happens here. And I think Laporta's sitting down is because it turned into zone coverage. They're going into a cover 3 look here defensively. They're going to go into cover 3, but they're going to blitz 2 guys. They have a third safety on the field. Richie Grant's in the inside slot. On the outside slot, again, they had Alford. They're both going to blitz here. So all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, this might not be man coverage. And it's not. The linebacker drops out. He does not rush. Both linebackers drop out, but neither linebacker drops out to take the running back. So I think that's the first thing you notice. Neither linebacker is matching up at the back. 2 guys are blitzing from the slot. All of a sudden, this is not 2-man. This is something completely different. What is it? It is cover 3. Jesse Bates rolls down to play zone coverage here. So look at this. He rolls down. What the Lions set up is kind of levels. We talked about attacking in front of the safety. This is a heck of an adjustment to me by Goff on this play. They do the short motion. Laporta's going to come in and sit down. He's not going to drag through. They're in man coverage. He sits down. Okay, fine. Watch what they set up here. So he comes down and sits down. This safety is going to drive down, seeing that, driving into his zone roll, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to dig right in front of him. So he's going to set down and basically pick up Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to dig right in front of him. Also, this linebacker, he's not trying to get a ton of depth. He's playing cover 3, right? So he has kind of this hook zone area where they're blitzing out of. So when Sam Laporta comes through and sits down instead of dragging through, now the linebacker sits down and it's like, I got to take that away. That's what the safety's looking at too. But Amon-Ra St. Brown cuts his face. So he's like, all right, I got to stick with that. So he sticks with it. Now all of a sudden, what'd you isolate? You isolated Khalif Raymond in the inside slot because of Sam Laporta sitting down in that short motion with the safety one-on-one again. On the backside, they're just doing their own thing over there. They're isolating one-on-one. They're like, hey, you know what? We're not even going to play with it. We'll just let you do what you want to do, AJ Terrell. Until you want to come to the party, you hang out over there and do your thing. All right? When you want to come hang out at the party, you can get into the slot, which you will. But for now, just stick on the outside. We don't need to go at you. Stay over there. So he stays over there. He does his business, does his thing. He's a great corner. We don't even mess with that. The adjustment here to see the linebackers drop, stick in, step in the pocket, and deliver this pass right in front of the safety. I'm going to give you a different angle of this one. I thought it was great, and it looks even cooler from this angle. But let's take a look here. So you can see, sees the linebackers drop out. You can see the two slots blitzing on this play. Stands in, delivers. Look at the anticipation by the linebacker's ear. Bam. That was probably it may have been his best throw of the day in my opinion. I mean, there was a couple good ones with pressure. That one may have been my favorite just because of, I think, the adaptation that he had to make on the fly. Like I said, AJ Terrell, you want to come to the party, you want to be invited, you want to have some fun, then you got to get in the slot. That's what he does. Hold up, though. Now you got to deal with St. Brown. So if you look at on this play, what the Lions do differently? They put a tight end out wide. Okay, so they put the tight end out wide. Here you can see Trey Flowers is on the outside, and again in the slot is Alford. So they give you a real sense of this is man coverage. AJ Terrell's in the slot, and the safety's over the tight end. That kind of tells you this is man coverage because that's not their zone spots. They're not dropping in a zone like that usually. That's a heck of a disguise if it is. So it kind of tells it they're in man coverage. All right, now they bring the 5th rusher on the play. You can see it here. Craig steps in, handles that. We only have 4 weapons or 4 receivers on this play, so that's why it looks a little weird. But that's it. AJ Terrell one-on-one. He's got inside help here with the linebacker, Ellis, who Goff is going to stare at first. But also Jared Goff says, when I got one-on-one with St. Brown, I know he's winning that matchup. That's how he feels about it. And you can see, boom, press that outside shoulder. There he is at the top of the route. There's some contact, but really strong contact balance there from St. Brown. He's dealing with an injury. Heck, really strong contact balance to get him to open himself up, stay on his feet, and then break back inside there. You wanted to come to the party, you got to deal with that guy. And I remember, I think it was Miami last season, but I could be wrong. We had a very similar look to this. They did this across motion. It was cut off short here. And again, Alford follows on this play, as we've seen. He ends up picking up Khalif Raymond. Now, if you're asking why, because of when the motion is snapped, he's in a different alignment. So you can see when the ball is technically snapped, he's almost inside of St. Brown, but he's still motioning across as the ball is snapped. So he ends up being wide on this play, which is a little bit different for Alford because he's the slot. So now basically you get Khalif Raymond wide on a slot cornerback with really no help to the inside either. These safeties are, again, kind of staying at kind of that quarters look. They kind of stay right in there on the hash marks. So you isolate this look with Khalif Raymond, and this is basically just impossible to cover, man. Khalif Raymond's too darn fast. I think it was Miami that we did the same thing to them. And you can see he's just going to attack with speed. He's going to get into his blind spot here, flip him around, and then with a little love tap, not much, just kind of set his hand there, didn't push off, just set his hand there, and then break down. he's in no position to cover this up. Even Khalif went down, but he got himself so open that it was just easy money. Again, very similar to I think how we attacked Miami. I think last year we did that once. Now, I was talking about the zone rushing being inconsistent. Let me give you an example. There were a couple things that made it a problem. Number one, Calais Campbell made it an issue. Here he is on the weak side. He was a problem. He had forced multiple blown blocks. He forced some on Penei Sewell. So if we wanted to run to the weak side, which a lot of times you notice when the Lions try to zone run, they tried to go to the weak side because they would try to attack this interior defensive lineman, specifically if they were playing a 2-eye or a 1 technique. They wanted to attack that player, in this case Grady Jarrett, to get in front of the blocks with Frank Ragnow. That wasn't always perfect, but we tried to. Because on the front side, we had issues like this. David Onyemata at the 3 technique. Blown block there from Glasgow, that shuts down the run. Also, still, Grady Jarrett, as it's a strong side run, gets inside the play because he's got an inside technique already. We're not able to jump in front and cut that off in time, so he's still able to wall off and make this play. And then again, Calais Campbell doing what he does on this backside. Now here it's not a great example, but when we tried to run that way, Calais Campbell was usually the guy that shut it down. So when we saw towards the end of the game, when Jared Goff did a little read option, we'll talk about that when I get there, but basically the plan was, look, if we're struggling blocking him, let's just not block him. Let's just run around him. And that's what we did. But we'll take a look at that when we get there. Here's what I love. The Lions went to a wham block here. Now, this had some success, but I really just wanted to point out one guy. It is Sam Laporta. Because, again, they kind of had to mix up what they were doing. They picked up 8 yards here, but it was Sam Laporta. He talked about wanting to get low. Look at how he gets low on this one and drives that defensive tackle out of the pile. I mean, he absolutely just lifted that guy out. I mean, that's a big man. Gets low, bam. Drive him out of the play. Talk about improvement, right? The little things. Run blocking much more consistent this week, in my opinion, from Laporta. He is a flexible enough athlete to be able to do things like this. We see him route run. That guy can sink. All right, he can fly through routes. So we know that the flexibility is there. Now utilizing it as a blocker, bam. Not ham fighting, but driving through him and opening up that gap for Gibbs to go 8 yards on the play. I didn't show all the plays in here, but we had a real problem trying to punch it into the end zone. We settled for a field goal, as we know, after about 7 tries to score. Now, we had an offensive penalty that backed us up, but we had like 7 tries to punch this thing into the end zone inside the 10, or inside the 20, I should say, but most plays were inside the 10, and we could not. Why? Very good zone coverage. What they were doing is running cover 2 red zone, okay, or red 2, whatever you want to call it. That's what they were playing defensively. So what that means is that cornerbacks will get more depth than normal, so they'll get depth. The safeties will spread out wide, and they'll kind of just play the sticks. They'll act like the end zone is the first down. They'll just play the sticks across the board, but it's still zone coverage, and the Lions could not find an opening to attack. It was covered really well. They tried motion. They just could not find an opening. Now, they came back later and said, you know what? We're doing too much. Making this too complicated. Let's just get St. Brown one-on-one, and we'll take a look at that. But here was probably their least complicated play. It was incomplete, but it was kind of just like, all right, we're doing too much with this. We're just going to run you on a fade, and these two guys, those 2 slots, we're just going to try to isolate you behind the backers. We run a little whip route, and it's a little bit low. It's incomplete on that play. It was still covered up pretty well, but it was kind of a tell like, hey, we're doing way too much here. Look at their next red zone appearance and how they simplified the heck out of it just to punch it in, because defensively, they were doing a really good job on us. I thought we had some really unfortunate flags on this game on special teams, and I'm not going to go through them, but we had a face mask. We had, I think Will Harris got called for one. We had another one that kept backing us up. This ball should have been at like the 40. Instead, you can see we're at our own 17. So that is a massive difference before half, trying to get points from being at your own 17 versus your 40-yard line. Massive difference. This was one of the good plays, though, on this possession before half, trying to get some points here. And as we talked about, their safeties don't open up wide. When they play 2-man, they still play within kind of their hash marks. Now, one little tweak to this, notice they motion across Sam Laporta. So again, what happens then? Well, the linebacker is going to want to stick with it unless he releases vertical, then he's going to try to give it to the safety. So I do think partly because of that, all of a sudden, that attention from Jesse Bates has to go there. Now, he runs a chip and just drags. He doesn't actually go vertically, but the attention is now forced there for Bates. And I think what that does is it doesn't completely allow this backside safety to open all the way up, because he knows that he's kind of isolated because of the roll there. If this thing goes vertical, he knows that he's going to have to take it. So he wants to give a little bit more room. But they're playing on top of St. Brown, but he's not getting wide. You can see the cornerback is playing some outside leverage, so he just releases inside of Trey Flowers. This is also a beautiful throw. Runs this corner route. It's really well disciplined at the top of the route, and he kind of has help over top, but not really. This is a beautiful throw. It was a heck of a chunk play, but then after that, it just did not work offensively. They did a really nice job here to set up this little swing pass, and we also missed a couple tackles, so this should not have turned into this big of a gain. But I thought they did a nice job. They kind of overloaded it. So they do the play fake. Brian Branch is going to just shoot shoot to the flat, try to take that away, as we talked about. He does not want to give that up. We did not want to give that up. So he runs the flat, and then he releases vertically. Now, the Lions end up switching it off. You can see Tracy is saying, hey, basically take this guy that's running the wheel route that you can't see right now. He's in your blind spot. You take that. I have this route for Drake London, okay? So he's telling him right here. By the time they switch, it's a little bit late on this play. So you can see he drops off to take that. Now Brian Branch can drive back down, but it's a little bit late. It's a good setup to kind of like leak these out at all different times, how they kind of release these all at different times. They also use Kyle Pitts here to release up the seam, and that kind of holds Alex Anzalone, so he's not able to get out and get depth because he has to deal with Kyle Pitts there. So they do a really nice job kind of opening up our zone coverage and kind of attacking the lanes. But even to that, this should not have been that big of a gain. We drive down on it. Alex Anzalone should have that outside help. He kind of gets into a weird mode. You can see he try to like break down, and then here he's like really off balance, and he's trying to cover a lot of field because he doesn't have, again, the guy that should be in the flat to help him, Brian Branch. He's not there right now. So he gets into this tackle very awkwardly and misses it, and then Brian Branch just kind of throws his shoulder into it, and they trip over each other, and they end up picking up a chunk out of that. So it was just an ugly tackle. It should not have been that big of a gain. But then Brian Branch came back and basically said, okay, that happened. They're having a little bit of success. We need to shut that down. And the guy that did it was Brian Branch. And it was really, again, notice Levi's in here at that 3 tech, again, just trying to stay on that front side a little bit. I didn't think this was the best there. I didn't notice him a ton in this game, but he did play, like, in terms of making, like, big impactful plays. But this was an impactful play for sure by that cornerback, Brian Branch. You're going to see it here. Edge rusher needs to get to the outside. That's what he does. He sets the outside. But also notice on this play, Brian Branch with that quick trigger, man, because the tackle is going to go out there to get on our edge rusher almost on this play, and Brian Branch is going to flow towards the outside. Then he's just going to plant right here, bam, put on the brakes, and drive inside, and the tackle's got no shot. He's already kind of like flowing with it. He's feeling like Brian Branch is going to keep running outside, and Brian Branch said, you know what? Hutch has got that. I'm going to drive upfield and go make a play, and that's what he did. Shut it down, tackle for loss, and it was such a key stop because they were getting momentum offensively to get him behind the chains. We needed that play. He continued here with a 3rd and 6 look. Notice you have John Kaminsky now on the interior. You could see him. Main reason is because it's 3rd down. It's not 1st down, it's 3rd down. So we see a lot of times we'll put John Kaminsky in. So he's in this 2-eye. About our edge rushers having to dominate. Well, this is an example of that. How about Charles Harris here working right through the tackle? They're going to swing towards the outside. You're going to see the safety here. Watch this. So he's going to jump in to take this tackle. They're going to allow the safety to work towards the outside iffy on this play. So they kind of, crash inside, open it up for him. But he crashes in right here on the tackle, bam, and sets such a strong edge. Now he forces that cutback lane, tied along with what Ali McNeil is doing on the front side here of the 3 tech, getting that inside shoulder free, getting cleared up. Now all of a sudden he's forcing the cutback, and then on the backside, it just comes down to they run a little cut block here. He goes down with it, so he wasn't super agile there to stay on his feet. Then it's just Hutchinson's relentlessness, pursuit, as Rad likes to say, and then he comes in and makes the play. Like we kind of talked about attacking tendencies. Now, last time, we talked about how they play man coverage. They like to put their off-ball linebackers in the box on the ball like this. Now, on the backside, what have we seen? Even if they go to cover 3, they isolate, right? They isolate on this backside where you have the 1 receiver. But with this sugar huddle, right, where you get out there and you just go, when you bunch it up, kind of, not really bunch it up, but you got 3 receivers to this left side. On the right side here, they can isolate with AJ Terrell, man him up. But getting out of the break and getting out of the huddle very quickly, St. Brown's in the backfield. They don't have time to really think about or recognize what's really happening here. Lions just immediately say, okay, he's going to take his guy. Whether this is cover 3 or cover 1, he's taking that outside receiver. So we just need to get him out of the play. So we essentially run kind of a pick play there with Marvin Jones Jr. We just need you to pull him inside regardless, because if he's in cover 3, he's doing this. If he's in cover 1, he's doing this. Now all of a sudden it's about the flat. Regardless of if they're in cover 1 or cover 3, someone's got to cover the flat. And again, if it's manned up, this linebacker's got to get out there because again, it's on that it's on the side of the field where they're kind of just isolating. Someone's got to get out there, and he's got a lot of ground to cover to keep from us getting 4 yards. And the Lions kept it simple, boom, quick hitter, attacking their tendencies, really just attacking how they lined up. I mean, really, that's what it was. It was kind of attacking how they were lining up pre-snap. This was also a look that we were getting, a cover 6 look defensively. So the Lions would go to these 2x2 looks, but when they put the running back on one side of the field, they would go to the cover 2 side. So here with the running back is kind of that 3rd option out of the backfield, Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a real receiving threat. So defensively, they would go to cover 6. We talked about isolating. They'd go to cover 6. So here would go quarters. They would go quarters with the tight end and linebacker because, hey, if he goes vertical, I'll pass him off to you, basically on this side. Safety's over top. We're going to man up down here. On the backside, though, Here, we're going to play that cover 2 look because you have the running back who's going to go into the swing route. He's a threat, and you have 2 other receivers. So we're going to play cover 2 on this backside. Notice what the Lions do for that. So they do the short motion. They drag across St. Brown. Like we saw earlier where it was like, well, they're just kind of running up the seams, taking their guys out of the play. That's kind of what they're doing here because they know this side, you get that quarters look. He's just playing one-on-one. That's what they've been doing all game. I'm just going to push him up vertically, and we're just going to utilize, because you're in zone coverage, we're going to utilize dragging across St. Brown. Now, they had an excellent adjustment next time we do this. And the adjustment is Alfred here, the slot cornerback. He is not going to let this thing drag across. Next time he sees this, he carries it across. Because here, with it releasing vertical and the linebacker carrying that, he has really no other threats on his side of the field. You had the short motion happening, and he's going to go into this drag route, but the linebacker doesn't see that. That's on the complete opposite side. He's worried about his side of the field. So when this thing goes vertical, he's just getting depth with it. He's just backing up, backing up, backing up. And this linebacker's like, hey, man, that's you. Like, you got that zone spot. So he's trying to pass it to him. And the linebacker's like, oh, so I didn't even see that. Anderson's like, I didn't even see that, dude. I was backing up with the seam here. So all of a sudden, now you have an open Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I would have liked to see him run through. I understand why he sat down into his zone coverage, but I would still like to see him run through this route because I feel like there was real opportunity to just catch a run and pick up first down. The downside of this is here. Penei Sewell gets called for a hold. So instead of 3rd and 3, it's 2nd and 20. So we talked about drive stalling out. That will stall out a drive, especially when your offensive line is banged up, tied along with something like this. To a cover 6 look again, kind of idea, right? Same kind of idea. Gibbs on the right side, so they play cover 2 this side because they have 3 options. Here they play that quarters look defensively. So the Lions know that, so what they do is they isolate linebacker on St. Brown with outside leverage. That's easy money. So we're going to push vertically here. He's going to run this out route. Goff already feels it. He knows what's happening defensively, so he starts to drift over there just to make the throw a little bit easier for him. So he starts to drift that way, and St. Brown drops it. So now those 2 plays, yes, that is why you don't pick up a first down because of those 2 things. That's what gets you right there. Again, here, another zone run. It's just another example of the Lions shutting it down. They go to this stretch look offensively, so everything's going wide right. Look what the Lions are asking their edge rushers. So again, you have to set the edge because their tight ends will sit in and block. We talked about that. Watch Aiden Hutchinson set a ridiculous edge here. Gets outside on the tight end, forces that edge, sits himself down. Now he's forcing that cutback on a stretch play. You're not getting wild to me, essentially, is what they were saying. Their edge rusher was like, hey, don't let them get wide. Set a hard edge, funnel that thing back inside. Now, the safeties, a lot of times, were kind of drifting outside of that, as we saw here. That made Brian Branch's play even more impressive because he got out, drifted out, and then he just planted and drove upfield. But you're also going to notice the agility of Lee McNeil is ridiculous here, man. He looks so light. He looks quick. Here he is in this 2-eye. Watch him try to kind of cut block off this backside Bergeron. Look at him stay on his feet to get in this tackle. I mean, now Romeo, he kind of missed a little bit because he ends up jumping over the fallen offensive lineman, but the agility there by Aleem to stay on his feet was so impressive. I'm like, dang, that's a big dude staying on his feet. That is impressive. Defensively here, Lions go into a quarters look, and this first play that we're going to take a look at here is Tracy Walker breaking up a pass. Even notice Iffy, though, still. Notice what Iffy does on this play. Look at the drive that he has. When you're in cover 4, you can get aggressive. It's a run defense. You can get aggressive. You can jump on these routes. Watch Iffy here jump on it as soon as it breaks inside. So Iffy was ready to attack as well. It wasn't just Tracy, but it was Tracy's guy is who they went to. They pull the offensive lineman, as we've seen. They get our linebackers to jump and bite a little bit on this play. You'll see it here with Jack Campbell. They get him to dive down, so they're able to get right over top of him. Now Campbell still has great length, so it still is a very tight window. But then it's Tracy Walker who's sitting in that hash mark with the outside corner here and just driving on it. Boom, right in his chest. Then you come back with Iffy, giving you something similar. A little bit different, though. Lions go into a cover 3 look this time defensively, but he does something pretty similar. Watch him roll down. Now, again, like we said, if the safety rolls down, they buzz the safety. If he's already in the box, they'll play him into the flat. But the aggressiveness had to be, we have to take away the flat. So notice, they're not going to roll him into the flat. They buzz him over the middle. Alex Anzalone will deal with the flat if something goes out there. So they had a little bit of a different strategy than what we've seen from them in the past when they go cover 3. But here, buzzing the middle of the field, look at this. Who's playing the sticks? So here's the sticks. Alex Anzalone sitting on the sticks. You can see Malcolm Rodriguez. He's been fantastic in terms of getting zone depth. That's one reason I do like why he's out there on third downs. He's not a man coverage guy, but he's very good at getting zone depth and being very disciplined. You see that right here, hitting his landmarks really well. But watch Iffy. Recognize that this drag is going past him and into Alex Anzalone's area. Also, you could see that b.godl, he's underneath in the flat. Then reading through the quarterback's eyes, he doesn't see this route, but he sees the quarterback's eyes. He opens himself up and just starts to roll that way. And then again, once he turns his body that way to find the football, he is right there, bam, just right into his chest. Didn't see the route, but just watched the quarterback's eyes, felt the depth of these routes, opened himself up, and made the big play. Back-to-back elite plays from our safeties. Those were beautiful. Verse 6 look defensively, same thing. You can see that they're rolling into here. We get essentially the same look. The only difference is this. Alfred played it differently. As they do this short motion, he starts to drag across. Alfred slides down and mans up. Now, St. Brown seemingly wanted to kind of sit down. I think that's why he didn't separate as much as he would have liked to, because he's already rolling. He should be able to get more separation, but he starts to kind of stutter like he's going to sit down. But I think he starts to do that, and then once he realizes the cornerback's in his hip, he's like, I'm going to roll through. I'm just going to run through this route, because this is zone coverage. But Alfred drives down to take it away, so they adjust to it. Now, you could have argued, hey, the swing route's then open because he took that away. Regardless, though, you would have had flat defender over here. But the point is, you find it, you pick it up. It's still a pretty nice chunk. But again, I think he kind of slowed down because it was zone coverage. Then he realized the dude was in his hip, and he's like, oh, okay, let me roll through this a little bit. Offensively, I don't think this was one of our best. I thought we had a little bit of a rough stretch here trying to pass the football. We had some inconsistency, specifically when they were dropping into these Tampa 2 looks. It's hard to throw against Tampa 2, especially when there's pressure like this. You can see David Onyemata just kind of crossing the face there. Jonah Jackson, he was giving everybody problems. From Frank to Jonah, just across the board, he was just giving guys problems. Graham Glasgow, he's a problem piece. Okay, that's what he is. And you can see the read on this play, but they're also disguising their coverage again. So safety's rolling down, then he drops out. All of a sudden you have Tampa 2, so you're reading two safeties drop in the middle of the field. Okay, this linebacker takes it away. Now you're looking here on Tampa 2. You have the vertical route and you have the out route. So you kind of hit that hole shot. Either you hit the hole shot behind the corner or you come underneath to this tight end. Where the sticks are, Sam Laporta was a fine read, but this is a hard pass to throw because he's watching middle of the field and he's going to try to fire this. He's rushed into throwing this because of the free rusher, or not the free rusher, but because the pressure's in his face, he's rushed into getting this ball off, and I think that's why this thing came out so aggressively, because instead of like placing it into his zone hole where he would have open space to kind of pull him back away from this corner, because usually he'd kind of try to throw him back. Notice on this play, Sam Laporta, who's running that out route, would try to sit down into that zone hole, but again, with Goff really having to throw this before he's even getting through this break, it's hard to mesh up that timing. Instead, he fires that thing in front of him, and you can see a big problem, I think, again, is that pass rush getting through there, because it kind of rushed the process, right? He knows where he wants to go with it, but the process is hurried up, and he kind of just fires that thing way out in front of him instead of being able to pull him back, and that's why that thing falls incomplete. It was interesting. So we saw this. We saw Romeo tip it up. Tracy Walker almost had an interception, but he didn't come up with it. We saw this, though, and we're like, oh, wow, that was, what was that? We saw Alex Anzalone make the big hit. But truly, this was set up by confusion. It was set up by Alex Anzalone not being on the right guy, right? So he didn't recognize until it was late that, oh, snap, I have Jonnu Smith. He's on this side. He went to the wrong side of the field. So Desmond Ridder sees that. He throws it there immediately. We drop Charles Harris out. You're going to see they're also going to drop Romeo out, and they're going to bring Derek Barnes into the play. So they only bring a three-man rush, but they drop into the holes of the defense in a second and long situation. So they're trying to get some of these yard backs. They go empty. There's not much of a rush threat, so the Lions drop out their edge rushers. We saw this last week against Seattle. But with him being late and Alex Anzalone taking off over there, it kind of worked out in their favor, because Desmond Ridder is just snapping it, trying to get out as fast as possible. Meanwhile, Romeo Okwara is dropping into coverage, and he's able to tip it up in the air because we were kind of broken down in coverage. So it actually just all worked out. And again, this was an example of what Calais Campbell was doing. Yeah, he was doing some things. He was tough. We were struggling to block that guy up. Here, for example, we try to run to the weak side of the field. We try to attack kind of that interior Grady Jarrett on this play inside of the guard. We try to attack that way, but this was the issue, was Calais Campbell on the front side just shutting things down. Again, like I said, I thought some of the Tampa 2 looks gave us some issues, especially because they were able to disguise it. They would almost give you like a cover 3 look, or like they were going to man up on the play, like maybe the safety has the running back again. So they would disguise it, then they would roll out. And you can see here, I didn't feel like the Lions necessarily had like the best play for it. They had a slot fade, which would have probably been the place to go with this football. That would have probably been the best spot, though if he's looking that way, Alfred's probably going to drop and get depth. It would have been a tight window throw. Over the middle of the field, it actually works perfectly because as Ellis opens opens up, he's actually going to run into Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to spot up and play kind of that over ball look on this play right between the center, right between the guards. Meanwhile, you're also going to sit down your tight end in front of that, but it gets covered up perfectly because of the defense that they're in. So both these guys are covered up well. There's really not a lot of places to go with the football on this play, and Laporta late tries to kind of slide himself open. Then the pressure gets in again. Anyamata really was the first guy to win here, which caused Grady Jarrett's ability to kind of slide through and open himself up through Jonah Jackson, and that pass fall incomplete. And now we're in a 3rd and long situation, and here was the interception. It was actually a good answer. We had a good play for it. Goff just missed a pass, and you can see by his reaction, like, he's like, dang, man, I missed that, because it was a good play. It was a really good play. So again, defensively, same look. Tampa 2 defensively, which is just cover 2, but the deep middle linebacker, middle third, so you kind of have 3 deep on the play with the linebacker. That's number 44 on this play, Anderson. So the Lions actually had a good read for this one. You can see underneath they're going to kind of sit down this drag route by Josh Reynolds, which is ultimately going to hold down Alfred on the play. So, you know, Jared Goff kind of has to wait for that. Then behind it, they're going to run kind of a dagger look. Now, the route is kind of turned into a post here by St. Brown a little bit. It's not completely flat. I'm not completely sure on why there. It looked a little bit weird in terms of how that depth was hit. But the point is it was a good concept. Jared Goff felt the pressure here. Sorsdal, they put a nasty spin on him. Glasgow did a nice job kind of recovering it, so he didn't need to rush this thing. He would have been fine, but he felt it. And he stepped up in the pocket and delivered this thing aggressively. You could see, though, the hole was there. He was trying to hold it. He felt the pressure. Once he saw Alfred sit down, he's like, yep, that's the window. So you can see he's throwing this thing very early. And then you can see the routes kind of like rolled out of. He almost threw this like more like a post. It was kind of not really ran like your typical dig route. It was almost ran like a little bit more of a post, but still I think he just kind of missed the throw on this one. The drag taken away by this underneath zone defender, so now he has what he wants because the seam is taken by the linebacker. That's how you attack Tampa 2. You come right underneath it like this, and he just missed the throw. It was a great design, but he missed the throw, and the safety behind it actually came up with the interception. We viewed this game about the zone counter plays, right? Because how effective their counter plays could really be, because of how fast they could, you know, how well they moved and how well they were with their outside zone rushing. And then all of a sudden they hit you with a counter. Your linebackers would be out of the play, and your backside support wasn't necessarily there. But this one was pretty good. First off, you see again the quickness from Aleem McNeil, which is just causing disruption again on the play. Jerry Jacobs also didn't have a route on his side. He had the tight ends in line on this play, but he's just going to rush off the backside here. I think they motioned over Hollins, so he's just going to rush off the edge. He had an opportunity to make a tackle, didn't make the tackle, got kind of steep on the play, probably playing a little bit more of the quarterback than the running back there. So he gets steep, he misses this tackle. But really, I give credit here because the Lions still limited this run to Derek Barnes first. Watch how Derek Barnes fills this. They don't overreact to it. So they get the counter look, but he doesn't jump out of the play. Fills his lane, I think, pretty well. With that counter run, he jumps into his lane. That allows Alex Anzalone to get outside, because if Alex is kind of playing in between both, you can see Alex Anzalone is going to jump to the outside to almost like, okay, so he's got to contain. But he can't because you have this inside rush lane, which they're trying to attack. But because Derek Barnes jumps inside and fills it, he doesn't completely overreact or miss it. It forces Bijan to then bounce outside. Then Alex Anzalone, who was trying to play a little bit of both here, kind of shed and just hold up. Because he jumped inside, Alex Anzalone was then able to disengage and get to the edge here. And I think it was really set up by what Derek Barnes and Alex Anzalone did. They played that zone really well. The little counter play, they handled that really well, and they ended up bringing that play down. So that was a really good job by the linebackers. Very good discipline there to shut down a run that had been very effective for them in the past. London again on the outside. He is mashed up on Cam Sutton. And this is just kind of that half-turn look that you get. So you're going to see they're going to man up everywhere across the board. Again, not to say it was a perfect day for Cam Sutton, but one thing you note of him is the patience. He's very comfortable in half turn. This is a coverage that he's played a lot of. He looks much more comfortable. I think a guy like Jerry, but I think Jerry is still kind of picking it up consistently, like playing that kind of role. But you can see the comfortability for Cam Sutton in this kind of coverage technique. You can see him here. He attacks his blind spot, but he stays patient with it. And then some of the flexibility and control at the top of the route to sit himself down, open back up, and then drive back onto the football. That's just a really nice job playing under control there while they attack your blind spot to not get overly aggressive. Again, more pressure inside by guess who? Aleem McNeil, right on the rookie there with the instant rip, and then he's able to set up kind of the crash or the loop through. Then you come back with another cover one look. This time, very impressive here. They man up. You can see they put Drake London in the slot, so they get it manned up here. Now, they do this short in motion, but Branch does not switch it. Branch is like, no, you take it. We're staying with where we are. So Cam Sutton plays outside leverage with middle field help. You can see the zone linebacker and the deep safety. And then Brian Branch, who can sit outside leverage here and protect that. You're going to see, watch this single step inside. Watch this jab. Now, Brian Branch does not give up his leverage just because of that single stab, right? He stabs with it, but he does that little false step, but he doesn't jump inside just because of the stab there from Drake London. Then he's going to try to jump outside. Now, he opens him up a little bit, which is why he got separation, because he's just a big physical receiver. So if you open him up and he's not square, you can have success at the top of the route like this. But even so, the timing was kind of thrown off. You can see him kind of fumble a little bit here trying to get out of his route. But this was a nice job by matching that single step, by not overreacting and still sticking to the outside leverage and being able to sit down with this curl route. Now, the pass was missed, but he handled it pretty well, and it was an incomplete pass. And one of the things the Lions actually started to do offensively that I thought had real effectiveness to run the football was duo rush plays. The Lions were struggling to get consistent movement, run blocking, and zone, so they went to some duo looks. And here we start to see them really drive the big men off the line of scrimmage. Here you can see, look at them driving number 95. They're just completely driving him out of the play. They just said, you know what, we're going to go power here. We're going to just drive these dudes back. And they had consistent success, and this drive opened up because of that. Here on the backside, you seal off, and then you're just driving the dudes backwards. Just those hard double teams that you create in the interior. We have another look. They go right back to it here with another duo look. They motion over Brock Wright, so they're going to the left side. So they motion over Brock Wright. And again, these are your starters. This is Anyamata and this is Grady Jarrett. Look at how they handle this. Penny Sewell and Jonah Jackson handle. Look at that. They have him on his knee, man. And then here, Grady Jarrett handles it pretty well, but you're not going behind that. You're going at Anyamata, who is a big, but he's only 300 pounds roughly, and he's a 3 technique, so you can double team that on paper, and that's who they decided to attack. Brock Wright does enough. It allows Gibbs to, again, get up to the second level and then just fight for extra yards like he does there.
And I think coming in, I didn't think the Lions would have much success with these types of runs, but the Lions ultimately got to it a little bit later in the game and decided to kind of give it a try, and they found success doing it, so it did work out for them.
Now, we stopped doing that because there was one play we went behind Graham Glasgow, blown block on the play. I think it was Grady Jarrett who shed the block, and then it was like, all right, we're going to get out of that. But here's what I wanted to showcase. Just like we saw last year many times, the last time the Lions were in the red zone, they were trying to figure out, how do we attack this cover 2 red zone defense? How do we get somebody open? We can't get anybody open. Lions said, look, man, we're doing too much. We're thinking too much. Let's just simplify the dang thing, okay? They want to do all that stuff, fine. We're just going to isolate it because, again, he kind of played the sticks. We're going to go one-on-one. We're going to put St. Brown on an island with Trey Flowers. We like that matchup. He's going to win at the top of the route, and we're going to run our play action, and then we're going to run that out route. We've seen this many times. We're just going to isolate St. Brown one-on-one. We're going to stop playing with all this stuff. We're just going to isolate the guy. And you can see they're going to motion across here Khalif Raymond. So now all of a sudden Trey Flowers, who's sitting outside leverage, is one-on-one with St. Brown. They utilize the play fake. Safety's eyes go there. So when you motion him across, he sets up a little bit more inside, but he still has outside leverage on this play. St. Brown releases that way through the stem of the route, and then you're going to see at the top of the route where he sets it all up. Physical, gets on top, a little bit of a push off, creates separation, and that was their big chunk play. And then, as we've heard before, look, if you can't block him, just run right by him, man. Put him in the action. If we're struggling to block Calais Campbell, we're just going to make him tackle. We're just going to put him in the action. Just leave him unblocked. If we can't block him, don't block him. We'll just go right at him. And that's what they do here. So they bring over the tight end, Laporta, who ends up stepping in the block because this would normally be the guy who has Jahmyr Gibbs, but they bring over Laporta to just step in and lead the way. That way they don't have that free Richie Grant to make this tackle. Then they just put Calais Campbell in the mix. Now Campbell almost got there, and you could see this zone run was not going to work. They were handling it in the interior. This was not going to be there. So Goff pulls it down, and they kind of made it sound like this was designed, like they knew they were going to pull this down anyway, and it probably was with the Laporta motion. But again, if you're struggling to block him, don't block him. Just run by him. And that's what Jared Goff did right there. Lions give you another cover 3 look here. I just wanted to showcase Cam Sutton. This was pretty nice. See, this was just a really nice disciplined job by Cam Sutton. Again, once again, he's just found around Drake London on the outside. They try to set up a double move. Like, can we get him one-on-one? They know he's isolated over there, but the Lions are aggressively attacking the flats. What did we say? Watch Iffy on this play. Aggressively taking away the flats. Now with that, it allows Cam Sutton to play a little bit off, because if he's up and he's really contesting with him, maybe you don't have to get that aggressive to take away the flat, but he's aggressively taking away the flat, so it allows Cam Sutton to sit on top, but they're still saying to themselves, it's still one-on-one, so maybe we can end with a double move. But he wasn't falling for that. That's their best receiver. That's who they want to go to, but he wasn't falling for it. He stayed disciplined. They utilized the pump fake right there. he steps a little bit, but he really doesn't bite at all. He just sticks right on top of the route. And again, they do a lot of that within their offense. A lot of kind of like one read, 1-2, get the ball out, that kind of thing. And when you tie that along with our ability to get some pressure, as we did late here, that just kind of shuts down their entire passing offense. That's not how they're built to play. Even a look like this where they try to set up that little bubble screen, the Lions go into that quarters look here defensively. Once again, you're going to see, watch Jack Campbell start to kind of slide over there with that loop motion. Brian Branch with that steps outside, so all of a sudden this block's going to be tough to pick up, so he's got outside leverage. Jack Campbell watching the mesh point, watching the run fake, but also opening up. You can see there's nobody really inside here in the box. Charles Harris going to have to crash down and handle that, but Jack Campbell starts to open himself up once he confirms, okay, that's not going there. Now he can drive for the inside. Brian Branch gets to the outside, and it's Brian Branch who shuts it down once again for a tackle for loss because he's proactive. Sees the motion and gets outside early. Doesn't play around with it, gets outside early. Now, for Jack Campbell, obviously that makes it so Jack Campbell has to give a little bit more room towards the outside. Jack Campbell obviously has to get a little more depth that direction because now Brian Branch is sitting completely outside leverage in a cover 4 look. So you're going to have Jack Campbell slide a little bit that way to help anyway. I thought they did a nice little job. After this play, the Lions immediately took out Malcolm Rodriguez. They were fired up about something here, and I think it was mainly this. You're going to see, again, the Lions are in this quarters look because Atlanta was just trying to score late, and they kind of set up like a natural pick here with Brian Branch. They run it towards the inside. Branch is sitting towards the inside, but it's here when Alex Anzalone says, okay, you take that, and then Malcolm Rodriguez says, okay, you take the outside. Like here, you see that communication. He's like, all right, you take the outside. I got it. But he's still not driving down on this route. And I think he was just a little bit fooled by how the route was ran here from the slot. Watch the receiver. He does a nice job. He pushes up, kind of sits down, and then he sprints underneath kind of that pick route that's set up.
You see on this play, Malcolm Rodriguez is opening to the running back side where they have 3 receiving options on that side of the field. That's understandable, but because he opens that direction, again, you're not really seeing Brian Branch come from the opposite direction to get proactive, be able to slide down on that, or maybe even pass off or exchange that route.
That got him late on the play, and then, of course, as you can see there, he went down, and they ended up picking up a nice little chunk. The example, as I touched on, Romeo Quora. Here he is in a 3 technique in the interior. Some slide over to this 2-eye look as Romeo just wanted to sit in the 3 technique. They kind of left him there. So he slides over inside the guard. Watch him step in front of it, get that inside arm inside, watch him sit himself down. This is just beautiful. Oh my goodness. Stack it up and then shut off it. Talk about playing gap and a half. Playing in your gap and through the next one. Look at this. Through in his gap and through the next one. That's as good as it gets, man. I mean, that is absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love that. Shout out to Lee McNeil. Also, you have Jack Campbell getting in there, and if he's not playing around either, he steps down and gets involved in this tackle, just kind of throwing himself in there. You love to see that, man. That's how he really started to kind of show that element of his game. It's beautiful. And then here in the red zone, notice this. This is what the Lions were doing. They were, again, sutting on Drake London all the time. But now here in the red zone, they were like, okay, but we like that, but we know that he's a big body. And this just does not match up well because, as we saw last week, he will just post guys up. He did it to Green Bay. So the Lions put a safety inside leverage. Cam Sutton sits outside leverage, and they bracket it in. That's why you get that incomplete pass there. Everywhere else, we're just going to man up like this. We have our off-ball inside linebacker that's going to help towards the backside underneath in coverage. And you're actually going to see that here on the next play. This is where they should have went probably. Jonnu Smith here on Alex Anzalone running up the seam. He wanted the football. He wanted a chance at it. But Lions do the same thing. This time Drake London goes into slot. Safety's cheating over this way. Again, they're kind of bracketing that thing inside because really they have both Kyle Pitts and Drake London, both of their big bodies on one side of the field. But Brian Branch does a really nice job covering this up. Again, the contact balance, staying really balanced is what stands out, man. Just not getting pushed off on this route. Staying square is what stands out. Watch him handle this here. Drake London's going to try to attack into his body, and you can see him move with it, stick on top of it, doesn't get pushed off, just sticks right in his hip. Safety's cheating that way, and again, on this backside underneath, you have Derek Barnes kind of sitting in that zone. So just covered up really well there once again by Brian Branch. One of the nice plays that I really saw from Jerry Jacobs in coverage was this one. Lions went to a quarters look here in the end zone, and watch Jerry Jacobs' recognition. Sees this thing cross the middle, because we had some breakdowns last week. He sees the crossing route, pass that off to the inside safety, then all of a sudden he sees the wheel route. Watch his recognition. He sees the wheel route carried by Derek Barnes, so then he drifts off of that and he drives underneath on this incoming crossing route and just takes it away. That was a heck of a play, a very heads-up play here by Jerry Jacobs. Just reading through all the mess and then sliding down and driving on this and making a nice tackle. overall, this was a heck of a game for our defense. This wasn't the best offense, but it was a legitimate rushing attack. And I think the Lions confirmed what they've been showing for a while now. They can stop the run. They have shown that. They were disciplined. Lions once again made adjustments defensively, came out with some different personnel looks. A little bit unique, but also I thought a very aggressive strategy. Like, look, we're not playing around. We're putting our safety in the box. We're stopping the dang run. It's as simple as that. And offensively, we sputtered a little bit. I thought our offensive line had a really rough day, not just, with the guys that were missing, but with our normal starters. Penei Sewell, left tackle, you understand there's going to be hiccups there. They have a very good interior with their starters, but we had a lot of issues on the offensive line, which threw some stuff off. Really bad flags. We had like 10 flags for over 100 yards. Couple on special teams, which backed us up. Bad flags got it behind the chains. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot on a couple of those drives from keeping them going. We can't do that, especially as we continue throughout this season, especially with some of these injuries, because like we said last year, you get behind the chains with that offensive lineman, everything changes. We're fine when we're pass protection is there. We know how to scheme guys open, but we have guys that can beat man coverage now, specifically with Laportas and Gibbs, but you can't have these dumb penalties. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. Credit to their defensive line. We adjusted offensively to find a way to get the run game going, and overall it was a heck of a win, but now we're on to Green Bay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, for watching, and I'm out.